security chief briefed members of an al-Qaeda plan to use radioactive roadside bombs to be used against British troops in Afghanistan, as well as possibly using a large dirty bomb that would contaminate an area for many years. Alerts sent to Washington detail attempts at smuggling nuclear material across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Weapons-grade nuclear material was found on a train crossing the Kazakhstan-Russian border. Highly enriched uranium was transported through Uganda on a bus. One individual was attempting to sell radioactive plates taken from the Chernobyl nuclear reactor site. In September of 2009, two workers from the Rossing uranium mine in Nambia smuggled nearly a half-ton of uranium concentrate powder, also known as yellow cake, out of the mine in plastic bags. Senior British defense officials have raised concerns that Pakistan could become a source for terrorists to obtain nuclear and biological material, either from a scientist sympathetic to the extremists or from a lapse in Pakistan security. British Defense Secretary Liam Fox stated to the British Parliament that Western powers should work on the assumption that Iran could have a nuclear weapon by next year, and not to only rely on assumptions that believe Iran couldn't make a nuclear weapons before 2015. Mr. Fox cited what happened in North Korea when they produced nuclear weapons quicker than the Nuclear Commission had estimated, and encouraged the English Parliament to act on the Iran nuclear issue. Iran's nuclear ambition is not going to go away, and so far they have not shown any willingness to back down on their steady march towards development of nuclear technologies. Also, Iran is suspected of having a hand in some of the Middle East uprisings, specifically in Bahrain and possibly in others. As 2012 approaches, we can definitely see scenarios that could explode even as early as this year. Major conflicts in the Middle East could easily turn into World War III and involve nuclear and possibly chemical weapons. During the unrest in Egypt, Islamist groups were able to smuggle something large into the Gaza Strip. Security officials are not sure exactly what it was, but they speculate it could have been a large quantity of weapons, possibly anti-aircraft missiles. The Hamas-controlled area continually tries to smuggle in more weapons to use against Israel in future conflicts. On March 3rd of 2011, a Muslim extremist opened fire on a bus carrying U.S. airmen. The airmen had just arrived at the Frankfurt airport in Germany from the Lockheath military base in England. 21-year-old Arif Uka shouted Allah Akbar just before firing upon the U.S. soldiers. Allah Akbar is Arabic for Allah is greater, and is commonly used by terrorists when they commit violent acts. Arif Uka first shot an American who was smoking a cigarette outside the bus that came to pick the soldiers up. Uka also shot another airman as he returned a luggage trolley. He then entered the bus and fired on the driver before he was subdued by police. Two airmen died, one was in critical condition, and a fourth airman had minor injuries. Uka fired a total of 9 shots before his gun jammed and police captured him. The bus had 15 airmen on it, and they were going to be taken to the U.S. military base at Ramstein, and eventually to be deployed in support of the war on terror in the Middle East. The attacker, Arif Uka, was a German-born, but his family hails from Kosovo. Kosovo is a predominantly Muslim province that was until recently part of Yugoslavia. NATO forces in 1999, under the direction of Bill Clinton, helped secure its independence from Yugoslavia. Kosovo formally declared its independence in 2008 and was recognized by the U.S. on the ambassadorial level. Of the country's 2 million people, 80% are Muslim. Uka's uncle disclosed that Arif is a devout Muslim and that he worked at the Frankfurt airport. He also stated that Arif Uka's grandfather was a religious leader at a mosque in the village of Zabar, near Mitrovica, Kosovo. After the attack, the German police cordoned off the area and began using bomb-sniffing dogs to check for any bags or luggage that may have contained explosives. None were found. Police tried to claim it was too early to tell if it was a terrorist attack, even though this was obviously a terrorist attack. The only matter up for inquiry is whether he acted alone or under someone's direction. Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, speaking at an event in the Allstate Arena at Rosemont, has predicted that Mideast-style uprisings will come to the U.S. Farrakhan was speaking at the 81st annual Savior's Day celebration, which honors the birth of W. Fard Muhammad, the founder of the Nation of Islam. During his 4-hour speech, Farrakhan stated, "What you are looking at in Tunisia and Egypt, Libya, Bahrain, what you see happening there, you'd better prepare because it will be coming to your door." Farrakhan also called on President Obama to allow protesters to march and not to attack innocent people when they do. The event also featured workshops on health issues, preparing for natural disasters, and the coming of UFOs. The Nation of Islam faith is a combination of Islam, black liberation theology, mixed with belief in UFOs. They believe in the coming of a UFO called the Wheel and also the Mother Plane. Farrakhan has claimed that in 1985 he was taken aboard a UFO while on the craft. A voice which claimed to be Elijah Muhammad told him of a historical events which later came to pass. Farrakhan also praised the founder of the Scientology religion, L. Ron Hubbard. Scientology, interestingly enough, also believes in the coming of UFOs. Farrakhan stated that L. Ron Hubbard himself was and is trying to civilize white people and make them better human beings and take away from them their reactive minds. Normally, the ramblings of fringe religions wouldn't be worth worrying about, but the potential in the U.S. for civil unrest is growing, whether it's coming from the left through labor unions or socialist activists who may not like the rolling back of benefits and programs as America deals with its debt in the states as well as on the federal government level, or even the common person who may find it hard to buy food due to inflation or by some natural disaster. Part of the reason for the revolts in Egypt and Tunisia was the high cost of food. There are groups in the U.S. hoping for events to happen that will cause people to revolt and call for a revolution. Once a civil war or revolution breaks out, the Constitution and democracy can be thrown out, at least temporarily, while the unrest continues. In September of 2010, 48-year-old Donald Mackenzie of Stornoway, Scotland, disappeared from Mount Ararat in Turkey while searching for evidence of Noah's Ark. Mackenzie, a missionary and Ark hunter, began looking for Noah's Ark in 2004. He came back to Ararat in September of 2010 to try and verify the claims that the Ark was found by a Chinese group in April of 2009. A Hong Kong evangelist group called Noah's Ark Ministries International, or NAMI, stated that their 15-member team had recovered specimens from a wooden structure inside a cave on Mount Ararat. These specimens, taken from 13,000 feet, supposedly carbon dated at 4,800 years old, or 2800 BC. This date generally would coincide with the biblical timeline of the flood. In the days just before his disappearance, he was passing out Bibles in a small Turkish village. Donald Mackenzie's last known communication was on September 28, 2010, at a height of 14,700 feet on the mountain. He stated cell phones work on Ararat. That cell phone communication would be the last indication of where he was. None of Donald Mackenzie's belongings have been found, such as his tent and cell phone. Speculation as to what may have happened to Mackenzie in the 6 months that he has been missing range from an accident on the mountain to foul play. Mount Ararat is a dangerous mountain to climb, and it can and has killed people trying to explore it. Kurdish rebels have also robbed people in the past in this area, as well as the ever-present danger of being a Westerner and Christian in an area that may have Muslim extremists. Mackenzie specifically came back to Ararat to try to validate the claims made by the group Noah's Ark Ministries International of finding parts of the Ark in a cave. Claims that the NAMI group findings are fraudulent have been made. Jeremy Wiles, a friend to Mackenzie, a fellow Ark hunter, helped organize an initial search for his whereabouts that yielded no results. His Turkish sources tell him that the NAMI findings are fake and that people were paid to bring wood up to the mountain. There is some speculation that if Mackenzie came across those perpetrating the fraud, that they could have caused his disappearance. Wiles plans to return to Ararat later this year and search for his friend. Wiles started searching for Noah's Ark in 2004, the same year Mackenzie started his quest to find the Ark. When they met in Dagobeyazit, Turkey, which is near the base of Mount Ararat, they became fast friends, and in 2005 they climbed Ararat together. That expedition was cut short by a 2-day blizzard. Wiles is producing a